Namaste Guruji and happy Guru Purab to everybody. So yesterday we set two books into motion. One is this coffee table book. The other one is, Surcharge with Divine Love. Now this coffee table book is more of a picture book with some very rare satsangs compiled and some very candid moments captured. And we looked at a few pictures, which were breathtaking pictures shot by GuruJi Uncle. And those pictures speak volumes in themselves and help us relive those priceless moments. And then yesterday we read about a beautiful tribute from GuruJi Uncle himself, who's a world famous photographer, which reinforced the fact that Guruji jo hai, wo hamare ang sang hai. And we as human beings tend to miss the obvious many a times. So this beautiful poem, which I read yesterday, touched my heart so much that I want to read it again. And it says, God speaks. The man whispered, God, speak to me. And a meadowlark sang. But the man did not hear. So the man yelled, God, speak to me. And thunder rolled across the sky. But the man did not listen. So the man cried out in despair, touch me, God, and let me know you are here. Whereupon God reached down and touched the man. But the man brushed the butterfly away and walked on. And that's how oblivious we can be. So, starting us off for today are some beautiful pictures that I will try to show as best as I can on the camera. And just look at the radiant smiles and the joy that you see in these pictures. And it is such a pleasure to go through them again, because we try to rethink and relive those moments. Ke, oh, ye to us din kiya hai. Ya, oh, mujhe ye yaad hai jab Guruji ne ye chola pehna tha. Or, Rama Pilot was standing next to Guruji. And this is our beautiful Nurani Guru. Look at the different, I would say, Shiv mudras of Guru Sahib. And now, we will read the next satsang, which is mentioned in this book, because as I mentioned earlier, that these satsangs are very, very rare, and we don't get to hear of these often on social media platforms. So, who has heard the call of the Master? When he beckons, do we have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and the mind to understand? When that redeeming experience occurs, can we recognize it? Do we have the antennae to catch the signal that comes deep from the womb of the cosmic mysteries of existence? Or conditioned by the walls of our daily life? Have we lost the ability to be receptive, to be blessed, and to receive more than we can ever imagine or hope to return? We are born and we shall die. In the interim, our lives are full of ceaseless activities. Do we ever pause to ask, what is the meaning of this world? Why do we go on doing what we have always been doing mechanically and soullessly? So I'm going to interject here. Guruji ke paas jab hum jaate hain, so blessings sab pe barabar hai. Now I think it depends on us कि हम उस दरिया से, उस सागर से हम एक चम्मच भर के लाते हैं, एक बाल्टी को ऑब्जॉर्ब करते हैं, या उसमें डूब ही जाते हैं. सो हमारा एंटेना कितना ट्यून्ड है उस उस frequency के signal say that we can actually soak all the blessings. We can actually be the recipient of his blessings. And yes, a lot of things we do because of the mental, social, childhood conditioning that we all have been subject to. And remember that, Sangaji, another favorite line of mine, same actions result in same outcomes. So अगर आपको लगता है कि आपकी लाइफ में आपको कुछ different result चाहिए, perhaps try to alter your actions. Okay, caught in the web of Maya, we are all prisoners of our milieu until that catalytic moment when we are, even against our will, in the presence of the divine. The mind is configured to reject that which it cannot comprehend. The experience of the unknown does not come gift wrapped in our normal levels of comprehension. It requires a quantum leap of faith. Yes, it requires a quantum leap of faith. A resolve to go beyond our routine horizons, to embrace the beyond, to surrender to the undefined, to want to search again and be fulfilled anew. And Sangaji, that quantum leap of faith comes as a gift from none other than Guru Sahib himself. But when that call comes, it is unmistakable, although you may not know it. Nothing is coincidental in the cosmos. Everything for a reason. Whether we understand the reason or we don't understand the reason, we must accept. Everything for a reason, no coincidences. Everything works to a minutely designed plan. Each devotee met with Guruji in circumstances that were unique unto themselves. Some were driven to him by curiosity. Others went initially as skeptics. Just like Guruji laughingly used to say, "Ke aa gaya, let's try." Still, others went out of need. Some tagged on with believers. Others thought that the meeting took place by sheer chance. All of them were unaware that when he wills, it so shall be. So, हम गुरुजी के दरबार में उनकी रजा के बगैर, उनके इन्विटेशन के बगैर आ ही नहीं सकते, संगत जी. When I first met Guruji, he was sitting silently in Sangat, resplendent in his richly embroidered long flowing robe. His face in both hands, eyes open but transfixed on something far beyond. Not a blade of hair on his glistening scalp, feet crossed, resting lightly on his juttis. No one spoke. There was the balm of silence, except for the soothing, mellifluous notes of the kirtan. People sat in orderly lines while steaming hot tea was served to all. Once in a while, Guruji would acknowledge someone's arrival by just a movement of his eye or a nod of his head or the slightest gesture of his hand. And I remember this personally. Guruji used to greet his Sangat by and large with this gesture that I can recall. In this oasis of stillness, devotees would come and touch his feet. Some would bow deep and some would lie prostrate on the ground in obeisance before taking their place in the Sangat. The master would remain silent, lost in the communication of his own, the occasional smile lighting up his face. That is true. कि गुरुजी के टाइम पे वहां पर कोई डिस्कोर्स, कोई प्रचार, कोई भाषण नहीं दिए जाते थे. And getting an opportunity to talk to Guru Sahib was a rarity. और जब गुरुजी आपकी तरफ स्माइल करके देखते थे या he would extend his hand to shake hands with you, तो ऐसा लगता था कि जन्नत मिल गई है. और अब तो हफ्ते भर हाथ ही नहीं धोना क्योंकि तुम्हारे पूरी बॉडी कपड़ों में इतनी फ्रेग्रेंस आ जाती थी. It's like, when you shake hands with a celebrity, you're like, oh my God, I want to hold on to that ehsas. We had the same feeling. So, Not all were instantly converted into believers. India is full of gurus who claim to have a hotline to God. They too hold sangats. They too promise miracles. They too dress flamboyantly. They too hold kirtans. They too distribute prasad. How could someone know in the very first meeting that Guruji would prove to be so different? Certainly, Guruji could himself be very opaque. In fact, during Sangats, he hardly spoke at all. And when he did, it was in monosyllables, in a highly accented Punjabi, not easily comprehensible even to Punjabis. Again, yes, that is right. Sometimes Guruji used to speak in English, but mostly in Punjabi. And उनकी पंजाबी इतनी ठेठ थी कि वो accent और जितनी वो तेजी से बोलते थे, कभी-कभी वो grasp करना मुश्किल हो जाता था, and we dare not ask him to repeat. कभी मुंह से क्या गुरुजी तो निकलता ही नहीं था, सिर्फ निकलता था हाँ जी गुरुजी, चाहे कुछ पल्ले पड़ा हो या ना पल्ले पड़ा हो. Very few people knew much about his personal life. I knew that he was born in Punjab, born in the village of Dugri, near Jalandhar, and that as a child, his miraculous powers were evident. But little more. He gave no sermons. He prescribed no mandatory rituals. All he asked for his devotees to have chai, tea, and stay for longer. He could very often be stubbornly remote, almost inscrutable, a distant mystery lost in silence. Yes, despite his silence, Guruji was always able to radiate his beautiful, amazing love, the care, the affection that he was oozing for his Sangat by small gestures of making sure that anyone who comes to him has Chai Prasad and has langar. And humility was radiated just by making sure that every Sangat in the Darbar or outside, if the drivers are waiting outside the gate of Empire State, were served langar before Maharaj ate himself. But then, why should he have been accessible in conventional terms? Was it necessary for him to give sermons or distribute pamphlets about his teachings or prescribe rituals for salvation? Divinity knows no formulas. It has no prescriptions. It is divine because it is beyond human conventions. Its power to reach out to those willing to receive, to do this, does not need to have a voice or mechanical amplifier. Its ways are inscrutable, its powers unfathomable. It is subject to no worldly laws. It does not work to your images. It is unto itself a sovereign exercise of cosmic power beyond definition, vocal in its silence and silent in its eloquence. And may I add that Guruji was a living testament to what practical spirituality should be about. Guruji, by the nature of himself, was part of the mortal world, but with no stake in it. Divinity is transcendent. It cannot be constrained by the concerns that surround you or me. It is above the fray because the fray is too small to circumscribe it. It may seem to be a participant in our pursuits and indeed appear to be involved in mundane matters. But this participation does not for one moment derogate or diminish its essential characteristics of detached, effortless, and attributeless omniscience. The benediction for its devotees was that Guruji was willing, for their sake, to forsake his domain of sheer bliss and awareness, to provide succor to them. It was an act of sheer grace of cosmic will, of unmotivated benevolence with no ulterior motive except the well-being of his Sangat. And we've heard it repeatedly, and it's the absolute truth. Guruji apni Sangat ko bahut pyar karte hain. His miracles were an aspect of his compassion. They were proof of his concern and love for those who came to seek his help. Too many to recount, they provide incontrovertible, unquestionable, and emphatic proof of his divinity. Some incidents are narrated in this homage, but they are only a glimpse of the range and extent of his miraculous powers. Like we always say, it's like a tip of the iceberg. हम गुरुजी का क्या बखान, क्या गुणगान कर सकते हैं. कल्याण हो गया, I have blessed you, was all that he had to say, and incurable diseases would disappear. Cancers evaporate, blocked arteries would open, failed kidneys begin to function, livers shed their cirrhosis, and decades-old asthmas just go away. Often, he would know of the ailment before the devotee. At other times, he would pronounce the cure before the devotee could even ask. His divine intervention would leave doctors stupefied. Foolproof pathological tests would reverse themselves in hours, leaving medical practitioners dumbstruck. Yes, Guruji ko bahut maza aata tha logic or science ko fail karne mein. Water from a copper vessel blessed by him could banish the most intractable disease. Betel leaves touched by him and applied to the affected part of the body could remarkably prove more effective than any surgical procedure. His cosmic powers were not explicable by any yardstick of science. And they were not restricted only to medical cures. The childless were given progeny. Cars would run without petrol. Applicants would get jobs for which they had no hope. Children would pass exams which they were convinced they would fail. That's me. Failing businesses would begin to inexplicably flourish. Even the dying were given the opportunity to leave the mortal body with dignity, to do which, as is narrated in one of the incidents in this book, he was actually in two places at the same time. The amazing thing is that he asked for nothing in return, except for two things, which are, we should all know it, faith and surrender. Those who gave him the return gift were guaranteed his protection for life. All they had to do was to attend the Sangat whenever they could, have chai as prasad, eat the langar, something he would insist on. The tea and langar had miraculous powers of his own. Those who were seriously allergic to tea sipped the one Guruji gave and felt better. Those who were diabetic and could not have sugar drank sugary tea and were cured. That's my mother. Those who had been prescribed all ghee and masala, ate the langar and kara prasad and were healed. No wonder then that his Sangat had people for whom he was God incarnate. So yes, on the langar thing, Guruji इतने शौक से, इतने चाव से he used to ensure कि उनकी संगत लंगर करके जाए. एक बारी की बात है that my mom, dad were gone like for the entire day. होता नहीं कि you leave on a Saturday morning कि आज weekend में गुड़गांव से दिल्ली जाना है, सारे errands run करने हैं. So पूरे दिन के वो निकले हुए थे and वापसी पे on MG Road गुरुजी का स्थान आया. सुजब स्थान आया, both of them looked at each other कि चलो गुरुजी की जगह आ गई है, मत्था टेकाते हैं, उसके बाद we'll just go home and rest. So they went in, and sure enough they were offered, this very refreshing chai prasad. और chai prasad पीकर, dad and mom, they both got up and they thought कि मत्था टेक कर अब घर चलते हैं क्योंकि थके हुए हैं. So जब वो मत्था टेकने आए तो गुरुजी looked at dad कि कहाँ जा रहे हो? And my dad said कि गुरुजी थके हुए हैं. पंजाबी में उन्होंने बात करी, अब पूरे दिन के निकले हुए हैं, बहुत थकावट हो रखी है, अब घर जाके आराम करेंगे. And Guruji just laughed at him and he said कि टिपिकल फौजियों की तरह घर में क्या अंडा ब्रेड ही खानी है ना, यहाँ से लंगर करके जाओ. So बहुत छोटी सी बात है, और शायद उस बात का उतना असर उस टाइम पे नहीं हुआ जितना आज ये सब याद करके होता है कि गुरुजी हमारा कितना ध्यान रखते हैं. So to those who were not fully convinced, he would counsel faith in his own inimitable style. During the Sangat, he would ask the living witnesses of his miraculous benevolence to speak about their experience. There was no ego involved in the process. What he had to gain when he was himself perennially, eternally fulfilled. As the Upanishads say, all this is full, all that is full. From the fullness, fullness comes. When fullness is taken from fullness, fullness still remains. But apart from the miracles that people could see and vouched for, there was another kind of miracle that Guruji wrought. This is the internal transformation he brought about in his devotees. Suddenly their temperament and personality and attitude and approach would undergo a subtle but definitive change. And this might come very, very slowly. Those obsessed with anger would become calmer. Those consumed with envy would begin to see the futility of it all. Those devoured by material pursuits would realize that there were other, more fulfilling horizons. Those who only thought of their interests would be motivated to think about the welfare of others. In surrendering to him, they would suddenly realize their own infinitude and understand the sterile tyranny of the ego. In some strange way, his love and compassion would rub off on those who sat at his feet. गुरुजी अक्सर कहते थे कि मेरी blessings लेनी है तो अंदर का बर्तन, अंदर का भांडा साफ करो. So that's a constant process which needs to be done and revisited on a daily basis. There is no day in our life where we say, okay, we are at a state of perfection and there is nothing else we can do to improve. Because the second that thought comes, I think we're done. The spiritual journey was within the minds and hearts of the devotees. It could not be quantified like his other miracles. It was a metamorphosis, more difficult to narrate. Sometimes devotees would not even be aware of the change within them. And yet, without any sermons and any do's and don'ts, those who met with the master would begin to experience a new sense of inner peace and joy, new feeling of contentment and fulfillment, a new perspective on life, in which the agitations and fears and concerns of the past were subsumed in the personalized spiritual anchorage that only Guruji could bestow. Joy was radiating manifestation of Guruji. When not lost in communion, he had always a smile that gave to his entire persona an irresistible glow. Yes, गुरुजी के चेहरे पे ऐसा नूर होता था संगत जी कि दिल करता था कि हम बस एक टक उन्हीं को देखते रहे. And yet इतना तेज कि जब वो हमारी तरफ नजर घुमाकर देखते थे, हमारी नजर अपने आप झुक जाती थी. We could not do like एक टक eye contact with Guru Sahib. At least I couldn't. In his human form, he was an effulgent being dressed in the specially designed finery of his robes, which he wore for formal sangats. He would often be in an incredibly contagious mood of frolic and laughter after langar was over. That's right. Then the devotees who had not left immediately after would see him in a different form, benevolent as always, but relaxed, gently pulling his leg gently pulling the leg of one devotee, giving to another a special appellation, allowing a third to massage his feet, and announcing to the fourth that their son or daughter was going to have a love marriage. Joy is undoubted hallmark of divinity, and Guruji could tangibly convey it in these moments. If he knew that one of his devotees enjoyed a drink, he would say, "Go now, have your peg." The Sangat was not a ponderous, somber, intimidating gathering, but a joyous congregation in which Guruji held the center stage. Yes, इतना आनंदमय माहौल होता था कि ऐसे लगता था कि पूरे दिन के जितने भी घंटे हैं वो गुरुजी के चरण में ही बीते, उनके सामने बैठकर बीते. And all the other shun that we used to spend doing other errands, going to college, doing our work, felt like, a burden. Sometimes he would give his assent to a music or dance better, allowing devotees proficient in these genres to perform. Yes, we have seen live performances, impromptu dances, all happen at Guruji's feet. At other times, he would suddenly take some in Sangat to a Chinese meal in a restaurant where he would urge everybody to eat, but himself eat almost nothing. On other occasions, he would take a band of his followers on an outstation trip to attend the wedding or the housewarming of a devotee. And these journeys would acquire all the characteristics of an extended picnic, where he would personally see to every organizational detail. That is absolutely right, Sangaji. Suddenly, on 31st May 2007, Guruji left his mortal body. The bereavement happened so unexpectedly that it left his followers unbelieving and numbed. 100 questions arose in their minds. How could he leave his Sangat orphaned? Why could he not determine when he had to go? How could he, who cured so effortlessly so many more serious ailments, not cure himself? And I still remember that when this news was broken to me, I was in New York and it was a different time zone. And my mother had called us crying, and her first words were, "Hum anath ho gaye." And I just thought that something happened to my father because, Guruji chale gaye was absolutely unimaginable because of all these reasons. Ki ye to karodon ko jeevan daan dete, Guruji kaise ja sakte? Certainly, he was much too young to die. Could he not have lived a little longer to consolidate the spiritual movement he had unleashed? How could a tidal wave of this magnitude be stilled without notice? There was no final answers to these questions. After all, how old was Christ when he was crucified? And could he too not have vanquished his oppressors? Krishna died of a wound inflicted by an arrow, which he could have easily deflected. The body is mortal, and Guruji paid no heed to it, inflicting on it sorrows and pains that he took away from his followers. Yes, एक महाशिव हमारे गुरुजी ही है जो दूसरों का कष्ट, दूसरों का विष अपने ऊपर ले सकते हैं. For nights, he would not sleep, lost in meditation. For days, he would not eat, ignoring the call for sustenance. His body succumbed, but his soul lives on. The human form in which we know him is no more, but his spirit is there, and it is larger than ever. The aroma of the rose-scented perfume that used to dismally surround his body can still be smelt in the very room where he used to hold his Sangat. Devotees have been blessed by thousands of miles away in other countries, yes, practically all continents. Prayers to him are still answered. His benediction is still available to the seeker. As before, all he asks for is faith and surrender and a nirmal mind. In fact, liberated from the constraints of the mortal body, he has become ever more powerful and in some ways even more accessible. Why? Because the restraints, the limitations of his physical form, his chola, are no longer applicable to Guruji. And I think वो निराकार होकर और भी शक्तिशाली हो गए. He lives on, and it is we, his devotees, who have to understand that great souls never die or take birth without purpose. Guruji mera sada sada, na aaye, na jaye. For those who were blessed by his presence, his death is but a comma in a much larger story which is still unfolding. Yes, Sangatji. Yes, these words scream the truth. They have only to learn how to read on and retain faith, for he will not forsake those who come to him. In this ephemeral, transient world, only he is the source of enduring solace and redemption. And so we must celebrate his continued grace and sing with joy, Guru Meri Puja, Guru Govind, Guru Mera Par Brahma, Guru Bhagwanta. Tu hi tu Guruji, tu hi tu Shukrana. And we close out with these two pictures and start afresh tomorrow with the next ones. Now moving on to the other book. So Sukhmani Auntie's book, Surcharge with Divine Love. We started off with a hair-raising introduction about how for many years she felt Guruji's presence even before coming face to face with Maharaj. And finally, when she met Guru Sahib in person, the words that Guruji said to Sukhmani Aunty was, Sada Parivar Vapas Aa Gaya. So आगे पढ़ते हैं क्या हुआ. Just want to keep a track of time here. Meeting the Guru who changed destinies. Where are we going? I asked my mother, hoping it wasn't a trip to some saint or some religious place. Being a very pious and spiritual person, my mother loved taking such trips, and my sister and I always got tagged along. I'm sure my daughters feel the same about me. Although I never saw my sister protest, I wasn't too keen on visiting any more saints. I had met too many, and each one had something or the other to say to me. You must pray more, your stars are bad, or your future life is not going to be a happy one. One even told me that my birth chart wasn't even worth reading since there wasn't a single good thing in it. Having heard such negative things about my life endless number of times from endless number of saints and soothsayers, I wasn't ready to hear it one more time. We are going to meet Guruji in Jalandhar. I've heard he is very powerful and can change a person's destiny. I couldn't believe my mother had fallen for this one. Change a person's destiny? That's a new one. Mom gave me one of her looks that told me she wasn't giving me an option. Soon along with my mother, grandfather, and my sister, I was on my way to meet the great Guruji who changed destinies. Yes, अगर हमारी हाथों की लकीरों को कोई बदल सकता है, तो वो है Guru Sahib. We reached the temple in Jalandhar at about 11 a.m. and we were told that it is closed for the day as Guruji was resting. As soon as we were told this, word came from Guruji that we should be permitted to come in. We were made to sit in the temple and were offered tea. Guruji walked in soon and asked us to sit next to him. Now, how do I describe Guruji? I guess I can say he was bald and wore silk robes that seemed out of the world. But the truth is, even an ordinary person like me could see that there was something very different about him. His face had a glow of 1,000 bulbs. जैसे शिव कुरान में describe करते हैं ना, glow of 1,000 suns. I think Sukhmani Aunty has drawn a similar comparison with the glow of 1,000 bulbs. There was fragrance around him that smelt divine, and his eyes seemed to pierce through a person's soul. He had the aura of a king, and yet was humble, kind, and loving like a father. I was speechless. Tera naa ki hai? What is your name? He asked me. Sukhmani, I answered proudly, since I was very fond of my name. Bada changa na hai? It's a very nice name, he replied. He gave me a long look and told me about the health issues I had been facing since a few years. I couldn't believe that someone who had just met me briefly could tell me about my illnesses. I remember all the other saints I visited had to be told of the problems I was going through, but this was the first time I had met someone who already knew. He seemed to read me like a book. Guruji was like a magnet I could not pull away from. Even though I had a few questions, I didn't, however, have any doubts that I had finally come to the right place. I had come home. In the few hours that we spent with him that day, I felt so much love and affection from him and for him that by the end of the day, I didn't want to go back home. Yes, that's how most of us felt. कि लंगर के बाद जब गुरुजी छुट्टी देने लगते थे, तो Empire State में, for those of you who've been, जहाँ गुरुजी की कुर्सी पड़ी हुई है, there's a little khamba in between, and then there's a hall towards जहाँ music system पड़ा होता था, and we would all just sit behind that khamba कि गुरुजी से नजर ना मिले और गुरुजी ऐसे करके इशारा ना करे और छुट्टी ना दे. So that was the desire कि घर नहीं जाना. We were told to come regularly for the next 15 days, and strangely, I look forward to meeting him again. To the amusement of my family, I used to be the first one to get ready and waiting to be taken to Guruji. See, like I told earlier, that everybody has a one-to-one soul connection with Guru Sahib, and just because we are part of one family in this janam doesn't mean that we will feel the same. Everybody in the family can have views that are poles apart, and that's fine, because it's essentially being orchestrated by none other than Guruji himself. The next day, when we entered the temple, Guruji suddenly looked at my mother and said, "Tu Karminder Kaur di beti hai? You are Karminder Kaur's daughter." No one could have possibly told him my grandma's name. तेनू पता है तू मेरे कोल 70 साल दी तपस्या बाद आई है? Do you know that you have come back to me after 70 years of meditation? My mother was only 43 at that time, which only meant he was talking about her previous lifetime. He told her that she had been with him in the past 2 lifetimes, being a student of psychology. I was greatly fascinated by the subject of past life and life after death. Needless to say, he knew about my fascination. And Sangatji, there are many other books that point to the fact that, it's one soul, many lives, many planes, different realms. And, हमारा शरीर जो है, वो destroy हो जाता है, but जो रूह है, वो नश्वर है. So we don't know about our prior lifetimes, but obviously Guru Sahib did. He came and sat next to me on the floor and looked at me in the eye. I tried to be brave and looked into his, and what I saw in them sent shivers down my spine. His eyeballs started to rotate, and in them I saw something different, but I was so scared I quickly looked away. Guruji smiled and asked, "Do you know what transmigration of soul means?" I knew what it meant, but I couldn't find my tongue. Transmigration of souls is a belief amongst various cultures where it is believed that a soul never dies and keeps taking birth in a different body. He further asks, "Do you also know that a lot of souls from the West have taken birth in India at this moment?" On hearing this, my jaw dropped because since a few years, I had been seeing flashes of my past lives, and in most of them, I wasn't an Indian. All that I saw about my past lives was later confirmed by Guruji. I could only stare at him in amazement. God, I'm getting goosebumps reading this. How did he know? Seeing me badly shaken up, he turned to my mother and said, "Aaj main teri beti nu Shiv ji de thode darshan karwate." Today, I have given your daughter a bit of Shiv ji's darshan. It is then I realized that the image that was taking shape in his eyeballs was probably that of Shivji. "Bring betel leaves worth 100 rupees. I shall do Sukhmani's operation tomorrow," Guruji told my mother before giving us leave for the day. I had heard that Guruji cured people by placing betel leaves over the affected areas. I had also seen a spoon next to his asan chair, which he used to carry into the room known as the OPD room. This is scary business. I told my mother that there was no way I'm going to let anyone take me to that OPD and do some kind of an unconventional operation. The next day, I was very hesitatingly, I went back to him, and the very first thing he asked my mother was about the betel leaves. All I tried to do is get a glimpse of the room everyone called the OPD. The door always remained shut, and my imagination ran wild. Does he actually cut open people inside that room? What does he do with the spoon? Scoop things out? The thought was enough to make me panic and sweat. All this while, Guruji was reading my thoughts and having a laugh at my expense. He gave me a smile and finally asked my mother to hand him the betel leaves. He held them and some prayer and handed them back to her, saying, "Put these on Sukhmani's stomach for an hour when you go home, and after an hour, dispose them in flowing water or bury them in a clean area." I took a breath of relief. We went back and did as we were told, and I instantly felt an empowerment in my health. "Apni beti mainu de de. Give your daughter to me," Guruji told my mother one day. I was shocked to hear this, and I actually thought my mother would just give me to him. I imagined cleaning, sweeping, mopping, and cooking in his temple for the rest of my life. At that time, the very thought seemed depressing. "Guruji, meri dono betiyan main aapko deti hu." "Guruji, both my daughters I give to you," said my mother. I looked at Guruji, hoping he didn't mean what I was thinking. He laughed at my foolish thoughts and said, "Dono meri khas betiyan hai. They are both my special daughters." My family and friends thought I was a Gnostic, which is an atheist, and I never bothered to correct them, nor did it hurt me to be called so. One morning, as I walked into his room, he said, "Lo, aa gayi Gnostic. Here comes the atheist." For the first time, it hurt me to hear that from him, but I kept quiet. He gave me one long look and then said, "Nahi Gnostic nahi hai. रब ना नाराज है, तेनू लगदा है रब दूसरे लोकां दा है, तेरा नहीं. So, to translate, what he said was, no, not an atheist. You are just angry with God. You feel that God does for everyone else, but not for you. Due to some incidences in my life, this is exactly how I had started to feel, and it gave me some solace to know that Guruji was aware of the facts. मैं हर जन्म विच तेरा गुरु सीगा, तेनू की लग्या मैं तेनू इस जन्म च छड़ देंगा. I have been your guru in each of your past lives, said Guruji in a very loving tone. What makes you think I would let you go this time? Come and press my feet. I quickly got up and started pressing his feet. In the few days that I had seen him, one thing was very certain. Not everyone could touch Guruji, and if he asked someone to press his feet, it was considered a great honor. Yes, that is absolutely right. Like I said, कि जब भी गुरुजी को घुटने का मौका मिलता था या फिर उनका जूता पीने का मौका मिलता था, ऐसे लगता था कि हमें उस दिन तो जन्नत हासिल हो गई है. And the high we used to get for so many days ahead is you cannot even explain it in words. I realized that the more I pressed, the stronger was the fragrance coming from his feet. मेरे दोनों पैरों पे पदम हैं. I have padams in both my feet, said Guruji. At that time, I had no idea what a padam was, and neither did I understand the importance of what he just told me. My mother, who was asked to press Guruji's hands, noticed his hands were turning blue. She immediately pointed it out, thinking maybe something was wrong with him. Guruji, why are your hands turning blue? Mom asked, sounding concerned. Asi Shiv. I am Shiv, was all that he said and smiled. Guruji lovingly called my mother Sukhi Aunty. One day he called her and said, Sukhi Aunty, tu roz 2 baje savere utkar Guru Nanak nu ardas kardi hai ki niche aao te teri betiyan di shadi karao. You get up at 2 a.m. every morning and pray to Guru Nanak, asking him to come down and get your daughters married. Yes, Guruji, was all my mother could say. She was amazed to see how he mentioned her ardas exactly word to word as she was saying it for so many past years. Guruji smiled and said, Tu Rab nu bulaya kardi si, le main hun aa gaya haan. You asked God to come down to help you, and now I am here. We were also dazed that we didn't understand and register the depth of what he was saying. He took us all in his room and made us eat lunch with him. I noticed that he hardly ate much and distributed most of his food amongst us. हर किसी नू महापुरुषां दा महाप्रसाद नसीब नहीं हुंदा. खाओ ते देखो सारी बीमारियां दूर हो जाएंगी. Not everyone is lucky to get the Mahaprasad from a Mahapurush. Eat and your ailments will disappear, said Guruji. And we all ate like it was our last meal. In these 15 days, Guruji gave us a lot of time and very patiently answered all our questions. Every day, the Sangat was given food first, and Guruji ate after feeding everyone. This was the first place where I saw that 4 to 5 people ate from a plate without hesitation. Eating with spoons was highly discouraged by Guruji, and this was a major problem to someone like me who didn't know how to eat with my hands. Each time I tried to sneak into the kitchen, he would catch me and send me back saying, no spoons. Many times I was left with a lot of curry and no chapatis to eat with. There were days when I had to use paper to scoop my curry. I also noticed that I was the only one who was given a green chili every day by Guruji. Each time I sat down to eat, he would come and give me a green chili or a chili pickle. I was never fond of eating chilies, and this seemed very strange to me. Many years later, when Guruji was in Delhi, he said, I see you don't have the kind of temper you had when you first met me. I agreed and laughingly said, Guruji, even I am surprised that I don't get angry very often now. Guruji laughed loudly and said, Mirchiyan khila khila ke tera main gussa katiya hai. It is all thanks to the chilies I have fed you. These few days with Guruji were like heaven. He had embraced all of us and taken us under his wings. He was what my mother was searching for all these years. His love was what I was looking for all my life. You have given me admission. And what does this mean? Guruji replied, I have accepted you all as my disciples. I was obviously very happy to hear this, but I had to ask him another foolish question. Guruji, doesn't everyone become your disciple once they come to you? No, he said. नहीं, हर कोई मेरा चेला नहीं बन सकता. हाले ते कई लोगां नू एडमिशन फॉर्म ही नहीं मिले. थानू सारियां नू एडमिशन ਤਾਂ ਮਿਲ ਗਈ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਕਲਾਸਿਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋ. कौन किस क्लास विच है ਉਹ ਮਹਾਪੁਰਸ਼ਾਂ ਦਾ ਸੀਕ੍ਰੇਟ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ. ਅਸੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਤਾ ਸਕਦੇ. Not everyone who comes to me can become my disciple. Some people haven't yet been given admission forms. He continued, even though you have got admission, you are all in different classes, and that is a secret that saints don't reveal. Although I treat everyone equally, but my blessings are according to your individual levels. Guruji was soft and kind, yet at times no one could be as stern as him. Ego was something he never tolerated and often told people to leave theirs behind before coming to temple. All he ever wanted from his disciple was unconditional love and surrender. And whoever gave him these, their every little need and desires were looked after. This is where my journey with my Guru started, or should I say, this was the point in time from where I resumed my journey with my Guru in this lifetime. So, यहाँ पर विराम लगाती हूँ मैं. कोई भूल चूक हो गई हो संगत जी तो मैं क्षमा प्रार्थी हूँ. ओम नमः शिवाय, शिवजी सर्व सहाय. ओम नमः शिवाय, गुरुजी सर्व सहाय.